My husband yelled, "If you walk out that door, don't you dare come back." I stood at the bottom of the stairs with my keys digging into my palm, the metal biting like it wanted to leave a mark. My throat felt tight, not from tears, but from the effort of holding my voice steady. "I won't," I said. Behind him, the bedroom looked like a showroom of our life. The bed made too neatly, the closet half open, and on the quilt, not his usual black roller bag for quick work overnights. This time it was the high-end charcoal travel luggage set, the one we only used for vacations. I was 35. I had spent years being the steady one, the one who paid on time, showed up, smoothed over stress, like it was my job. I had watched him climb, degrees, titles, late nights, while I told myself that love meant patience. He didn't even pause while folding a shirt, just kept moving, brisk and practiced, like I was background noise. "Another management summit?" I asked, trying to sound casual and failing. He snapped the zipper harder than necessary. "Quarterly planning, you know this." I took one step forward, the floorboard creaked. He finally looked up, annoyed, not guilty, like I'd interrupted him mid-thought. "I know the conference is in another city," I said. "I also know the hotel you're actually booked at is a 5-star resort, and the reservation has 2 names on it." His jaw tightened. "The second name," I added, "is Trish." For a split second, everything froze. The air, my lungs, even the silence. Then he exhaled through his nose like I was the problem. "You went through my emails," he accused, voice sharp with offense. "It was open on your tablet," I said, "on the kitchen island. Either you wanted me to see it, or you really are that careless." He grabbed his carry-on, eyes flashing. "Trish is my mentor, my boss. You're acting like a child." The word hit like ash. I stared at the lingerie tucked between dress shirts. Then I looked at his face. The contempt, the certainty, and something inside me turned cold and clear. I walked past him, down the stairs, and out the front door without looking back. From a sterile hotel room, hands still shaking, I called my lawyer and said, "File it. Serve him at the resort." And when room service arrived the next morning, my phone started vibrating like an angry hornet. Panic, rage, and consequences all screaming through the screen. I didn't meet him in some dramatic way. No fireworks, no love at first sight moment you'd put in a movie. We met at a work fundraiser, one of those stiff networking events where everyone pretends they're relaxed while gripping a glass of wine like a lifeline. I remember standing near the back, counting minutes, when he stepped beside me and whispered, half smiling, "If I stay here any longer, I'm going to fake a phone call and escape." I laughed, too loud, too relieved. That was him back then. Wry, observant, charming in a way that felt grounded. He wasn't the loudest man in the room. He didn't dominate conversations. He listened, asked questions, made you feel seen. I liked that. He was ambitious, but in a quiet, respectable way. MBA applications, long-term plans, talking about building something real with the same seriousness other people reserved for stock portfolios. When he talked about the future, he always used we. I was already established when we started dating. Stable job, good credit, a house I'd bought on my own years earlier. Nothing flashy, but solid. Mine. He used to say he admired that about me, said it made him feel safe. In hindsight, that word should have stayed with me longer. When he got into his program, I became the steady backdrop to his chaos. Late nights, group projects, emergency study sessions. I'd pack leftovers into containers, set reminders on my phone so I wouldn't forget to pay bills when he was buried in deadlines. I told myself this was partnership, temporary imbalance, an investment in our future. We married quietly, no huge wedding, just promises and paperwork and a small group of people clapping politely while I squeezed his hand and believed every word. After the degree came promotions, titles, travel. His calendar filled while mine adjusted around it. Dinners got rescheduled, weekends shortened. He'd kiss my cheek absently, already halfway into his next obligation. That's when Trish entered the picture. At first, she was just a name. My mentor. My boss. Someone who really got his potential. He talked about her the way people talk about powerful weather. Respectful, slightly awed. "She's pushing for me," he'd say. "She sees what I can become." I smiled. I nodded. I told myself this was normal. That successful people needed champions. That jealousy was small and ugly and not who I was. The trips increased. Conferences in cities he never seemed eager to show me. Dinners that ran late. Texts answered face down. He stopped asking if I minded, just informed me. "You know how this world works," he'd say when I raised an eyebrow. "This is how careers are built." And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tone shifted. If I asked questions, I was insecure. If I hesitated, I was unsupportive. If I needed reassurance, I was draining. I adapted, like water finding the shape of a container. I didn't know when admiration turned into entitlement, when partnership became expectation, when love quietly slipped into the background, replaced by momentum and ego, and a woman whose name showed up just a little too often. But looking back now, sitting alone in that beige hotel room, I could trace it clearly. The warning signs were there. I just didn't want to see them yet. The first real crack didn't come from a scream or a discovery. It came quietly, through omission. He stopped sharing details, not big things, small ones, the kind you only notice when they're gone. He used to tell me who he was meeting, where, how long. Now it was just work dinner or late night, delivered while already slipping on his coat. His phone became an extension of his hand, screen angled away, notifications silenced. When it buzzed, his eyes flicked down before he masked it with a neutral expression. Once, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, his phone lit up on the counter. A name flashed. Trish. I didn't say anything. I watched his jaw tighten in the mirror as he pretended not to notice. Later that night, I asked, softly, deliberately casual, "Does she message you often?" He didn't look at me. "She's my boss." That was the end of the conversation. Another time, he canceled dinner 10 minutes before I was supposed to leave. Texted from the driveway. "Emergency call. Rain check?" I ate alone at the table we'd once picked out together, the candles already melting. When he came home after midnight, smelling faintly of hotel soap and something floral that wasn't mine, he sighed when he saw my face. "You're doing that thing again," he said. "What thing?" Looking disappointed. "It's exhausting." I learned then that my feelings had become an inconvenience. The smallest comment could flip his mood. If I asked how long he'd be gone, he accused me of micromanaging. If I asked if I could join him on a trip, he laughed lightly and said, "It's not a vacation." But the receipts told a different story. 5-star hotels, room service charges, weekend bookings with no agenda attached. Once I found a dry cleaning ticket in his jacket pocket for a dress shirt I'd never seen him wear. When I held it up, he rolled his eyes. "I have more clothes than you track, you know." I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I was projecting. If this was what success did to people, pulled them slightly out of reach. Then came the comment that lodged in my chest like a splinter. We were at a friend's dinner party. Someone joked about spouses keeping each other grounded. He smiled and said, "Some people don't like being grounded." Everyone laughed. I didn't. That night, lying beside him in the dark, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was irritated by my presence. I tried to talk, to recalibrate. I told him I felt shut out, that I missed us, that I needed honesty more than reassurance. He listened with his arms crossed, eyes distant. "You're reading into things," he said finally. "Trish challenges me. You comfort me." The word comfort landed like an insult. I stared at the ceiling long after he fell asleep, my heart thudding too loudly in the quiet. Somewhere deep inside, a voice I'd been ignoring started to speak up. "This isn't just work. This isn't just stress. And if you keep swallowing this feeling, it's going to poison you." I didn't confront him yet, but the seed had been planted, and it was already growing. The night everything broke didn't feel dramatic at first. It felt ordinary. He was packing with the efficiency of someone who'd done this too many times. Shirts folded in clean thirds, shoes placed heel to toe. The bedroom smelled faintly of his cologne and the lemon cleaner I'd used earlier that afternoon. Still trying, still pretending. This was a normal marriage. Then I saw the luggage. Not the black roller bag he always used for work trips. Not the scuffed carry-on that lived half its life in overhead bins. This was a premium hard-shell luggage set. Charcoal gray, sleek, expensive. The one we reserved for vacations. The one that never came out unless there were beaches, room service, or at least something indulgent waiting on the other end. My chest tightened before my brain caught up. "Another management summit?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. I meant for it to sound light. It came out thin. He didn't look up. "Quarterly planning. You know that." His tone was clipped, already impatient, like the question itself was an obstacle. "I know the conference is in a different city," I said slowly. My fingers curled into the doorframe, nails biting into wood. "I also know the hotel you're actually booked at is a 5-star resort." That made him pause. Just for a second. "And the reservation," I continued, heart pounding hard enough I could feel it in my throat, has 2 names on it. Silence. I could hear the distant hum of traffic outside, the house settling, my own breathing, too loud, too fast. The second one, I said, is Trish. He froze, then straightened, turning to face me. I braced myself for guilt, for denial, for panic. What I got was irritation. Pure, unfiltered annoyance, as if I'd interrupted him in the middle of something important. You went through my emails, he snapped. It was open, I said. On your tablet, on the kitchen island. Either you wanted me to see it, or you really are that careless. His eyes narrowed. You are so paranoid. He yanked the zipper on the suitcase harder than necessary. The sound echoed in the room. Trish is my mentor, my boss. This is team building for senior staff, he said. You're acting like a child. A child. The word tasted like ash. I stepped closer and gestured to what he'd packed. Tailored shirts, casual wear, and tucked neatly between them, things he never brought on work trips. Is that also for team building? He laughed, short, sharp, ugly. The truth, he said, the truth is you're boring. You suffocate me with this neediness. God, I can't be around this energy right before a big presentation. He grabbed his carry-on and jacket, already moving toward the stairs. That's when something in me hardened. Stop, I said. He paused at the top of the stairs, one hand on the railing, looking back at me with open contempt. If you walk out that door to go meet her, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, we're done. I'm not playing this game anymore. He smiled, not kindly. No, he spat. You're done. I'm going to be successful, and I'm not going to be held back by your limp, pathetic jealousy. Then he said it, the sentence that severed everything. If you hate this so much, you leave. If you walk out that door, don't you dare come back. I'm sick of looking at your miserable face. I stared at him, at the man I'd supported through degrees and promotions, at the partner I'd trusted with my home, my time, my loyalty. I nodded once. I won't. I walked past him, down the stairs, grabbed my keys from the bowl by the door, my laptop bag from the office, and stepped outside. I didn't look back. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, just breathing. The numbness was absolute, like watching someone else's life on mute. Then the clarity hit. Cold. Sharp. I didn't drive aimlessly. I drove straight to a decent extended stay hotel, booked 2 weeks, and sat on a stiff, unfamiliar sofa with my laptop balanced on my knees. First, I transferred 75% of the money from our joint account, the one I'd almost entirely funded, into my personal savings. I left enough for groceries and gas, enough that no one could say I'd abandoned him. Second, I called my lawyer. I want the papers filed, I said, and I want them served at the resort tomorrow morning. Are you sure? He asked. It's aggressive. I don't care, I said. Embarrassment is the only language he understands. I ordered pizza, ate 2 slices, fell asleep fully clothed. The next morning, my phone vibrated nonstop on the nightstand, like an angry hornet. 17 missed calls from him, 8 from Trish, 4 from his mother. The first voicemail was panic. The second was rage. The third was crying, pleading, suddenly confused, asking me to come talk. Then Trish's voice, condescending, patronizing, telling me to be an adult. I deleted them all. My lawyer had been right. It was loud, and it had only just begun. The first thing I felt wasn't relief. It was finality. I turned my phone completely off, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I understood something instinctively. If I stayed reachable, some part of me would still be negotiable, still available to be pulled back into the noise. For the first time in my adult life, I made myself unreachable. The hotel room was unnervingly quiet. No familiar creaks, no shared routines, just the low hum of the air conditioner and the sterile smell of bad coffee. I sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, and stared at my hands. They weren't shaking. That surprised me. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't replaying the argument, trying to reword my lines or soften the outcome. The decision had already settled into place, cold, clear, immovable. When I turned my phone back on, it was only to text my lawyer. They've been served. Now what? His reply came almost immediately. Now we lock down assets. The tone was calm, procedural, exactly what I needed. He reminded me the house was mine before the marriage, 10 years living there on my own, 3 years married. That mattered. We would need to sell it to divide the marital appreciation unless I wanted to buy him out. I don't want the house, I typed. It's not a home anymore. That was the moment the weight of it settled. I wasn't trying to salvage anything. I was extracting myself. The messages came in waves. First, anger, accusations, threats disguised as outrage. You humiliated me. You've ruined everything. Call me right now. Then the shift. Not remorse, not accountability. Panic. This went too far. We can talk this out. You didn't have to do this. The tone wasn't emotional. It was urgent, frantic, scrambling to regain control of a situation that had slipped out of his hands. Then came her voice. Measured, condescending, as if she were the adult stepping in to manage a mess that wasn't hers. Be reasonable, she said in a clipped voicemail. This isn't how professionals handle conflict. Call him. Handle this like an adult. I deleted it without replaying it. That night, sleep came in shallow fragments. I woke up alert, not panicked, my mind already running through logistics instead of regrets. I wasn't missing him. I was missing the idea that loyalty would eventually be rewarded. The next morning, my lawyer called to outline the next steps. He told me, again, not to engage, not to respond, not to defend myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Silence feels wrong, he said, but right now, it's your strongest position. I believed him. By the end of the second day, I felt hollow, but not lost, like a house after a controlled demolition. Empty, but standing. I wasn't grieving the man I'd left. I was grieving the version of myself who kept explaining, accommodating, and shrinking to keep the peace. And once I saw that clearly, there was no going back. 2 weeks passed. Not quietly. Not cleanly. I moved into a small furnished one-bedroom apartment on a 6-month lease. Beige walls, generic art, furniture chosen by someone who didn't care who lived there. Which was perfect. I needed a place with no emotional hooks, somewhere temporary, somewhere that didn't pretend to be a home. My lawyer handled everything. Every message, every demand, every threat. According to him, the volume alone was staggering. They cut the trip short. I knew this because he told me they flew back the day after the papers were served. Apparently, he hadn't realized, truly realized, that I meant it. That I wouldn't be pulled back by outrage or embarrassment or last-minute negotiations. He found out when he let himself back into the house. The locks still worked. I hadn't changed them. There was no need. The house was empty. No clothes in the closet, no books on the shelves, no toothbrush by the sink. I'd paid a moving company a rush fee to pack only my belongings, my clothes, my files, my computer, my father's old desk, and put them into storage. Everything that belonged to him was exactly where he'd left it. The first call went to my lawyer. Where is she? He demanded. Why is all her stuff gone? Is this some kind of stunt? Ms. Hayes is securing new living arrangements, my lawyer replied evenly. As is her right. All communication regarding the property will go through me. She can't just leave, he snapped. This is my house. It is legally her house, my lawyer corrected. Purchased prior to the marriage. We will be filing a motion to sell the property to divide the marital appreciation, as required by law. I suggest you retain counsel. He hung up. Then he tried a different tactic. He drove to my brother's house. I hadn't even spoken to my brother yet. Not properly. I hadn't had the energy to narrate the implosion of my marriage, but that didn't stop him from showing up unannounced at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, pounding on the door like he was entitled to be let in. My brother called me immediately after. What the hell is going on? He asked. He was just here, looked furious, said you abandoned him and you're selling the house. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, I said. It's a long story. Try me. He was cheating on me, I said calmly, with his boss. I served him divorce papers while they were on a work trip. There was a long silence. Well, my brother finally said, that explains why he kept yelling about you ruining his career. I thought that was an odd angle. He didn't mention the cheating part, my brother added dryly. Just that you were financially abusive and emotionally unstable. Of course he did. Even now, especially now, he needed to be the victim. But the escalation didn't stop there. The next day, my lawyer called. You're not going to like this, he said. My stomach tightened. What now? He's filed a motion for an emergency restraining order. The words landed like ice water. On what grounds? I asked. I haven't spoken to him. I haven't seen him. He's alleging coercive control, my lawyer said, claiming you managed the finances and that by leaving and selling the house, you've left him homeless and penniless. I let out a short, disbelieving breath. He's also claiming that serving him at the hotel was designed to terrorize him, my lawyer continued, and cause severe emotional distress. This was it, the pivot. When outrage failed, he reached for the system. He's lying, I said. My voice stayed steady, even as something inside me burned. He told me not to come back. I complied. I know, my lawyer said, and his claims are weak, but we still have to respond. The hearing is tomorrow morning. The courthouse hallway was sterile and unforgiving. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, the quiet buzz of people waiting for their lives to be dissected. He was already there. Dressed down, no confidence, no polish, hair slightly disheveled, a deliberate choice. He sat beside a sharp-looking attorney in a pinstriped suit, posture angled just enough to look smaller than he actually was. When he saw me, he flinched. A tiny theatrical movement. I didn't react. Inside the courtroom, his lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a dependent spouse abandoned without warning, a controlling partner who cut off funds and disappeared, leaving him fearful and destabilized. I didn't interrupt. Then my lawyer stood, calm, precise, unemotional. My client has not seen or spoken to her husband since he told her, and I quote, "If you walk out that door, don't you dare come back," he said. She complied. He presented the bank statements, the joint account I'd left untouched, until it was drained within 24 hours, the hotel reservation, both names, the email confirming I'd left the house peacefully. The room went silent. The judge, a woman in her 60s with no patience for theatrics, looked over her glasses. "Are you currently employed?" she asked him. "Yes," he said. "And are you homeless?" "I'm staying with a friend." "This is a divorce matter," the judge said flatly. "Not a restraining order. I see no evidence of harassment. Motion denied." I stood to leave. As I passed him, I felt it, not sadness. Hatred, pure and unfiltered. And as I walked out of that courtroom, I knew something else had shifted. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was a war of attrition, and he was willing to burn everything down to avoid losing control. The ruling didn't bring relief. It brought escalation. Once the restraining order failed, he stopped pretending this was about reconciliation or misunderstanding. The mask slipped. What replaced it wasn't rage, it was calculation. The house became the battlefield. My realtor staged it in record time. Neutral colors, clean lines, sunlight poured through the windows like the place was trying to look innocent again. Within days, we had an offer, well over asking. A young family, no contingencies, fast close. For the first time since I walked out, I let myself breathe. Then my lawyer called. They filed an emergency injunction to block the sale. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? He's claiming significant personal property is still inside the home and that he hasn't been given proper access to retrieve it. That's not true, I said immediately. He had a full weekend. His mother and sister were there. They took a truck. I know, my lawyer said, but here's the part you're really not going to like. He listed the items. An antique armchair, family china, and something he referred to as the installation. The so-called art piece, a towering, grotesque structure bolted directly into the living room wall. Metal, glass, wood, cables. I had hated it from the moment it went up. It wasn't decor. It was obstruction. It blocked a section of wall that had always made me uneasy, though I'd never been able to articulate why. He's claiming it's a priceless custom piece, my lawyer continued, an heirloom in the making. I almost laughed. He's not trying to get his things back, my lawyer said carefully. He's trying to tank the sale. The buyers panicked. Their rate lock was expiring. Suddenly, the clean deal wasn't clean anymore. We went back to court. Again. He showed up dressed small, muted colors, no confidence, no edge. His attorney argued the piece was invaluable and that selling the home with it attached was malicious. My lawyer waited, then stood. Your Honor, he said pleasantly, my client is happy to return the installation. He paused. As it is a permanent fixture bolted into the structure of the home, she obtained 2 quotes. He handed papers forward. One from a licensed contractor to remove it safely, repair the wall, and repaint. Cost, $4,800. The second from a junk removal service, $600. The room shifted. The cost, my lawyer continued, would be deducted from his share of the proceeds. His face changed. Not anger. Panic. That's not, he started. It has to be removed carefully. That is the careful quote, my lawyer said. The judge glanced at the photos, then at the numbers. This is junk, she said flatly. You are wasting the court's time. The sale will proceed. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow, because while this was happening, the real blow landed somewhere else entirely. My boss called me into his office the following week. Uncomfortable, careful, measured. I got a call, he said, from your father-in-law. Former, I corrected silently. He implied you're unstable, my boss continued. That you're harassing his son, that keeping you on could complicate relationships. My heart pounded. This was the move that could actually ruin me. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I handed him my lawyer's card. He cheated, I said calmly. I filed for divorce. Everything else is retaliation. My boss leaned back. I don't care about the facts, he said honestly. I care about quarterly numbers. The pause that followed felt endless. Then he exhaled. But I also hate bullies, he added. And your ex's family has been leaning on people for years. Off the record, watch your back. Keep this drama out of the office. I walked out shaking. Not from fear, from exhaustion. I wasn't sleeping. I had lost weight without trying. Every win came with another thread attached. This wasn't justice, it was attrition. Late one night, alone in my beige apartment, I sat on the floor, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and felt it fully for the first time. Not sadness, not anger. Grief. Not for him. For the years I spent believing loyalty would protect me. For the home that no longer existed. For the version of myself that thought doing everything right would guarantee safety. That was my dark moment. Not when I left. Not when I filed. But when I understood the truth, walking away didn't end the war. It just meant I had finally stopped surrendering. The turning point didn't come with a speech or a dramatic confrontation. It came with paperwork. After the injunction failed and the sale was forced through, his legal strategy shifted again. No more emotional narratives. No more victim posture. This time, it was numbers. The house sold. Despite every delay, every stunt, every attempt to sabotage it, the deal closed. The appreciation value, calculated down to the dollar, was $180,000. Legally, his share was half. $90,000. That number sat between us like a line drawn in ink. Mediation was scheduled instead of trial. 1 full day, 8 hours. A windowless room that smelled faintly of burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. I walked in with my lawyer. He was already there, seated stiffly beside his attorney. And then I saw her. She wasn't in the room, just outside it, in the waiting area, sitting close to him, touching his arm, handing him coffee, offering reassurance like she belonged there. The audacity was almost impressive. My lawyer noticed my expression and leaned in. "Don't react," he murmured. "Let them talk." Inside the room, the discussion opened exactly as predicted. Money. His attorney requested rehabilitative spousal support. 5 years. The justification? Emotional trauma, career disruption, professional fallout caused by the divorce. My lawyer didn't raise his voice. Fallout? He repeated calmly. He remains employed by the same company. In fact, according to the pay stub you provided, he received a 10% raise immediately after the trip. Silence. What professional damage, my lawyer continued, is he being compensated for? There wasn't a good answer. Then came the assets, furniture, household items. We split them without drama. He took the couch, the dining set, patio furniture. I kept my father's desk, the mattress, the television. Then his attorney brought it up again. The installation. Though he had forfeited it, they argued, he should be compensated for its alleged value. A piece of paper slid across the table, an appraisal for $30,000, written on gallery letterhead I'd never heard of. My lawyer didn't even glance at it. Instead, he slid a different document forward. This, he said, is the final closing statement from the house sale. The buyers, after 1 week in the home, had requested professional removal of the installation. Why? Because behind it, concealed for years, was water damage, mold, structural compromise, something that had clearly predated the installation. The buyers demanded a credit, $10,000. My lawyer tapped the page. We deducted half of that from his share, $5,000. His attorney went pale. That's criminal, he said. No, my lawyer replied evenly. Covering mold is fraud. The math was merciless. $90,000 minus $5,000 for concealed damage, minus $2,400 for removal costs, minus $7,000 in post-separation credit card debt. He'd run up preparing for the trip. Final total, $75,600. He stared at the number. This isn't fair, he said quietly. I put my stamp on that house. I made it beautiful. It's worth $75,600, my lawyer said, closing his binder. That was the moment I felt it. Not triumph. Power. Not over him, but over the narrative. He stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly. You'll regret this, he snapped. You'll be alone forever. I didn't respond. Outside, she avoided my eyes. He hesitated, as if he wanted to say something, to justify, to explain, to soften the ending. Don't, I said. Just one word. That was enough. The truth had finally done its work, and it didn't need my voice anymore. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, quiet consequences, small collapses that, together, told a very clear story. The money transferred first. $75,600 landed in his account without ceremony, no apology attached, no note, Just the final number, cold, exact, irrevocable. That was it. The full financial outcome of a 3-year marriage. The house was gone, keys handed over, documents filed. The place where I'd once planned holidays and repairs and long-term stability now belonged to strangers with fresh paint and none of our memories. I stayed in the beige apartment, not because I loved it, but because it didn't ask anything of me. No ghosts, no expectations, just space. According to my lawyer, the tone of communication on their end changed almost immediately after mediation. No more threats, no more aggressive filings, no more grandstanding. Just resignation. Her attempts to intervene evaporated too. Once the numbers were real, once the leverage disappeared, her presence faded fast. Moral support only stretches so far when there's nothing left to gain. I heard updates secondhand. He moved back in with his parents. The explanation shifted depending on who asked. Temporary, strategic, just until things settle. But nothing was settling. The image he'd spent years curating had fractured, and no amount of spin could quite put it back together. At work, the aftershocks lingered. My boss stayed distant for a while. Not hostile, just careful. The kind of caution people adopt when they've seen how ugly things can get. But the threats from his family dried up. No more calls, no more pressure through back channels. The bully had tested the limits and lost interest when resistance proved expensive. The stress, however, didn't disappear overnight. I slept lightly, woke up alert. My body still braced for the next blow that never came. I'd lost weight without trying. Coffee replaced meals. Silence replaced noise. This wasn't victory. It was recovery from sustained damage. The last message arrived weeks later. A new number, no name. I hope that $75,000 was worth it. You destroyed my life over money. I stared at the screen for a long moment. He still didn't get it. Not the betrayal, not the manipulation, not the years of imbalance. To him, everything reduced to numbers. What he lost, what he deserved, what he thought I took from him. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to my lawyer, blocked the number, set the phone face down. That silence felt different, not defensive, complete. The ripple effects continued without me. I heard, again, not directly, that her own situation deteriorated quickly once the secrecy ended. Affairs thrive in shadows. In daylight, they demand accountability neither of them seemed prepared for. When the illusion cracked, so did the arrangement. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt distance. That mattered more. One evening, unpacking the last box from storage, I found my father's old desk, the surface scratched, the drawer slightly crooked, familiar in a way nothing else was. I ran my hand over the wood and felt something settle in my chest. I hadn't escaped untouched, but I had escaped. And the consequences, the real ones, were no longer mine to carry. They belonged to the people who caused them. It didn't end with closure. There was no final conversation, no apology that landed cleanly, no moment where everything suddenly made sense. It ended the way most real things do, quietly, after the noise burned itself out. I stayed in the beige apartment longer than I planned, not because I was stuck, but because I needed the stillness. I needed days that didn't demand explanations, nights that didn't come with negotiations, a life where my nervous system could finally stand down. The money was gone from my mind before it was gone from my account. $75,000 wasn't justice, it wasn't compensation, it was simply the price of exit. What I gained couldn't be measured that way. I gained mornings without tension in my jaw. I gained evenings that belonged to me again. I gained the ability to trust my instincts, because they had been right all along. I learned something uncomfortable but essential. Love doesn't erode you quietly. You allow it to, not because you're weak, but because you're loyal, hopeful, and trained to believe patience will eventually be rewarded. It won't. People don't change because you endure. They change, or don't, because of who they already are. Walking away didn't make me cold, it made me honest. I didn't lose my home. I lost the illusion that it was safe. I didn't lose a marriage. I lost the role of being the one who carried everything so someone else could climb. And I didn't destroy his life over money. I ended a pattern where my silence funded his entitlement. The last box from storage is unpacked now. The desk is set up by the window. My space feels intentional again. Earned, not shared out of obligation. This isn't a happy ending, but it is a clean one. And if there's a lesson worth leaving behind, it's this. When someone tells you to leave and shows you who they are when you try to stay, believe them the first time. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is walk out the door and never explain herself again. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, thank you for listening, for holding space, and for recognizing the kind of pain that doesn't always leave bruises, but leaves marks all the same. Stories like this aren't about revenge. They're about boundaries, about what happens when someone mistakes your patience for permission, your loyalty for weakness, and your silence for consent. If any part of this felt familiar, if you've ever been told you were too much for asking basic honesty or not enough for setting limits, you're not alone, and you're not wrong. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally chose yourself. If you found value in this story, I appreciate you being here. Feel free to share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments. This space is for conversation, not judgment. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about strength, clarity, and reclaiming your life, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.